Hi, babes. Welcome back to the show. I have a repeat guest on with us today, but I have just loved everything that she's been preaching out there in social media world. She's a good friend of mine, and I just had to have her on because I'm like, let's just have some girl talk and like some real talk. I feel like we've been through some interesting similar journeys. I'm a little bit
Hmm.
behind her, I would say, but anyways, Lauren Salaun, welcome to the show. You are fabulous. For
Thank
anyone
you.
who is new coming in, who definitely go listen back to our episode. I mean, that was like a year ago or so, but
Like at least
yeah,
probably a couple years ago, which is
maybe a
crazy. It
couple years.
doesn't feel like that long. I bet it was like at least 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, it was such a good episode. But Lauren, just to tell you a little bit about her, she helps women embody their magnetic feminine energy and empowers women to break free from the quote unquote boss babe hustle culture so they can live their lives with more ease and flow. She is also really passionate about helping women become magnets for their dream man and have the kind of dating and love life they deeply desire. Sign us up.
Right?
Sign me
Oh,
up, honey.
let's do it. I mean, we'll get into all the things. And I'm so
I
excited to be on here again. And fun fact, you guys, I've had Kelly on my show as well, and we're going to record another episode together as well. So we've got all kinds of girl talk with the two of us coming up, which is
yeah,
super exciting.
I'm so excited. Okay, so I think a lot there. I've seen so much. Like you're so I mean, obviously, this is what you're helping women with, but like just really embodied. And I love
Mm.
watching, whether it's your Instagram or TikTok, just how you're speaking to women. And I'm like, yes, I see myself. Yes. Like you're speaking to me oftentimes. And I just love it.
Mhm.
Like, how did you start to like position yourself gearing towards that, like marketing to
Yeah.
type of field, I guess?
Absolutely. So my personal brand has been a lot about magnetism, feminine embodiment for the last couple of years, and also like a lot of somatic healing and stuff like that. And generally there's always been an element of supporting women with confidence, with self-expression, with like really like being a woman and what it means to be a powerful, strong woman and a feminine woman. But a lot, the last several years, a lot on confidence, a lot of authenticity, self-expression, a lot of the somatic healing stuff, right? So like getting into which getting into the nervous system, getting into the subconscious mind, reprogramming all that, rewiring all that kind of stuff. And while I've been supporting women like very broadly in many ways around really like becoming less becoming, but like remembering who at their core that they're meant to be, the last like 2 years, I would say. Well, actually, I'm going to back it up. I've been single. So I got divorced or ended my marriage in 2020. I was with my ex-husband for 10 years. We were married for about 5 years. And so I have been dating since 2020. And for the most part, and let's be real, there have been a couple like wild experiences or like crazy outliers where I'm like, oh yeah, remember that sociopath I dated? Cool. But overall, my dating experience has been really great. Like I've found it fun, enjoyable. I and part of that, I've also been for a lot of my friends like somebody who is like the go-to friend about like dating and stuff like that, or even like, oh, tell me your dating experience, like all that kind of stuff, because I genuinely have really loved my dating experience and had a great time with it. And what's more is I live in Los Angeles, and so much of the time people are like, dating in LA is awful, and I'm like, when I hear that, I'm like, what are you doing then? Like, what are you
Right.
doing? Because that hasn't been my experience. And so this was kind of going on just mainly in my personal life and stuff like that. And I started to, um, in the last like year or so, like again, be kind of that go-to person for a lot of my friends. And I was wanting so much to talk about this stuff more because again, like I deeply, deeply understand um like feminine energy, masculine energy stuff, and male female polarity dynamics, all of that, and like the psychology behind it, like all that kind of stuff. And I also very much understand, like on the woman side of things, like the reprogramming we get to do to change our unsupportive patterns and things like that. If you find you're always attracting like this kind of person, okay, then let's dig in and shift that, because like we have so much more control over the energy that's coming our way than most people think, right? So if you're noticing, oh my gosh, I'm having such a hard time with this, or it's always a struggle, it's always that, like as nice as possible to say this, like you're the big part of the problem.
Yeah.
It's you know, like I don't want
Yeah.
to blame people because
True.
we've all had tough
Yep.
lessons to learn, I'm sure, but like you're the problem. But the great thing about that is you're also the solution, right? And so I was wanting to talk about this more, but I'm going to be really honest. I felt like I wasn't allowed to, quote unquote, because I'm single.
Yeah, I feel that so much.
Yeah, like, oh, I'm not allowed to tell people how to date because technically I'm single. I also, about me, like I've never been someone to like, I've never really been a big like jump into relationship kind of person. Like I like generally, like I said, was with my ex-husband for 10 years, and I've had a handful of other significant relationships, but I've always been quite cautious, I guess, or like both cautious, intentional, like slow to jump into commitment with somebody. Whereas some people tend to go like relationship, like all of that. I prefer a lot of the time, or historically, prefer being single, right? Like I'm like my time, my energy, like all that to be very focused on me, unless it's somebody that is like just completely amazing, right? And adds so much value to my life and like really is like all the things that I'm looking for. And then I'm like, so I'm like really restrictive with like when I commit or anything like that. And so I had this in my head of like, well, people aren't going to want to listen to me because like I'm technically single, all that kind of stuff and everything. I'm like, okay. But it kept being like, no, but you should talk about this, because again, I kept having these conversations with friends, or I kept like talking to friends about my dating experience and like how great that is, like whether it's somebody who stuck around for a while or not, or how like honestly like how easy a lot of dating has been for me. And especially really in the last 2 years, I would say. So really like 2023 and 2024, and then obviously we're in 2025 now, almost halfway through. That's crazy. But really, so the last like 2.5 years, my dating experience has been like incredible, right? Like very high quality people, most who check nearly everything off my list, but then there might be something missing, and I'm like, oh, like it's so close, but not quite, right? So it's a no. But ultimately having a really great experience. And so I had a lot of friends being like, you need to teach people about this stuff. Like, what are you doing? Like, share about these experiences. Like, and so like sharing from my own experience, and because there's a lot of stuff that also at this point in my feminine embodiment journey, because as Kelly mentioned, you guys, like I used to be very like boss babe mode, stuck in my masculine energy, all of that, and did so much of the work to where now I'm very at home in my feminine energy, and that is my default. And that's something too that in dating, in friendships, I get so much feedback mirrored back to me of like, oh, you're so in your feminine all the time. And so that's like such a beautiful compliment, because I'm like, oh, like, because it doesn't feel like I'm trying to be anymore, because I had to learn how to be in a lot of ways. And now it's my default, right? And so yeah, so it was this thing of like, I had to kind of get out of my own way with it and be like, wait a second, like, who cares if I'm single? Like, I literally have like field experience, out dating all the time, like
Yeah.
regularly, and so yeah, so just to say, you know what the heck, let's do it. And also like too, just for my own brain, like I'm like, yeah. And if people are like, oh, you're so like, it just reminds me of like TikTok trolls being like, where's the ring, right? Like sad men on TikTok who like, you should never take a man. Like if a man is trolling you on TikTok, Instagram as well, but especially TikTok, like I don't I don't know. I don't think men should have TikTok unless they're using it for their business or social media in
Right.
at all. So the
Yeah.
guy is like trolling you on TikTok or Instagram. He is so not worth your energy to even think about at
Mm-hmm.
all. Right.
Right.
And so,
Very.
but that sort of thing of being like, wait a second though, I was in a 10-year relationship, half of which was married. And obviously, while that relationship is no longer a marriage, and so some
Right.
could see that as a failure, I learned a ton.
Yeah.
And I would also say, like, my last, nearly 3 years of dating have been really, really great. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I was like, okay, let's do it. Cause yes, we got a lot of goods to share. And like dating should be enjoyable.
Yeah.
It should
Yeah.
be fun. And it shouldn't be something that like super stresses you out or depletes your energy. And like also, like, I don't want to use the word strategy or being strategic, but like there's also ways to make it work for you better. And that's not in a sense of being manipulative, but like so that it's worth your time. If you're so clear on what you want and what you're looking for, like there are ways to set yourself up for success.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. No, that resonated with me. I was actually, I guess I've had multiple conversations now over the last handful of weeks, but I am like really ready to get back into coaching, right? And I have battled so long with, I've been a health coach. I mean, that's how I started into came into coaching in the beginning was through health coaching. And a couple of years ago, I continued to do health coaching, although I just like, I've had such an identity shift, like even, us working with Erin, right? Like that she was my first one-on-one coach. Like you were one
Yeah.
of my co-coaches with Angie.
Yeah.
Like, like ever since working with all of you, like I've learned so much. And at this point, I'm like, I retired from the health coaching thing 2 years ago, but I was like, I am so done with talking about nutrition and like work and doing workouts. Like
Mm-hmm.
I love it. That's great. I want everybody to work out and be healthy and eat right. But like the mindset stuff, subconscious reprogramming,
Yeah.
helping, people with their attachment styles when it comes to love and money, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
money mindset. There are certain things that I'm like, I really want to do. And I had that same dialogue of like, well, how can I coach on? I mean, although I do have a digital program, Rejection to Redemption, like I have a program around it and I sold it a few years ago, but it's just like, oh, well, she's single. How is she like, how can she talk about like dating and love and relationships or money mindset when I have proclaimed on this podcast, I'm not where I want to be financially, but I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
like, it's not that, right? Like I'm a fucking billionaire in my mind. Like, like I just have that wealth mindset. I have a growth mindset, and a lot of people don't. And that's what I want to like teach them, right?
Yeah.
And then even with like the business stuff, I'm like, I want to call in entrepreneurs that want to, or want to be entrepreneurs, I guess, that want to like really like launch a coaching business too. I have the basics. I went through the freaking Angeli's mastermind. I know how to create a digital course. I have digital courses. I have sold them. It's like I have like the basics of things. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
people that just need the basics. They don't need the coach that is making multiple six figures or millions of dollars to teach the person who doesn't even have a business yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, okay, but I have put my business on the back burner for 2 years. So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't, not say I don't have a business, but it's like there's certain things that I've also had
Yeah.
dialogue of like, no, I have so much information. I almost don't know what to start with because I have so much information.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how can I make it all make sense? And, it's been an interesting navigation over the last few weeks. And
Yeah.
I've created my entire like program already, my sales page, everything. Like it's really about mindset
Amazing.
and identity
Yeah.
around business love or success, love, and money, more or less. But I have
Yeah.
the same dialogue. It's like, no, you know so much, just start talking about it.
Right.
And then
And
people know, like, she does know her shit.
exactly. And too knowing like where is the like line of like what's like out of my wheelhouse too, right? Like, because if it's like, oh, if I've never made $1 million in a year, which technically I have not, right? Then I shouldn't be coaching somebody on how to make $1 million in a year.
For sure.
You know, like I shouldn't do that. Like even with now with like the dating stuff and feminine embodiment work, I'm not necessarily like I'm not like, hey, I'm a relationship coach. No, not because I haven't been in relationships and I don't have experience, but that's not my like my wheelhouse. That's really where I've seen like really effective results and transformation, right? But I have seen not only in my personal life, but in with clients, with friends, like all of that, I have seen how like the dating and like early stage relationship stuff, and not even just early stage, but I've seen how working with women on their piece, right? What they can control and what they like, yeah, what they're in control of, how that can dramatically shift the dynamic of a relationship, and how a woman can conduct herself and like the mindset shifts and all of that and the healing work to be able to attract a different quality of man, right? And more men that are aligned with what she actually wants. Like I'm like, no, I'm like so good at that stuff. Like if I were working with a couple directly, like sure, I could absolutely support them. And I have worked with couples, not in a formal like couples coaching capacity. But I've worked with like men separately, women separately, and all of that. But that's also like not my zone, you know, where
Right.
though I have worked with women who are in like long-term marriages and who are struggling with some of the like, oh, like, you know, I want my man to step up more and be more masculine and stuff like that, which is generally the complaint or frustration that I hear most from women, especially women who are high achievers, high performers, who are used to being again like that, like boss babe, like powerhouse house woman kind of mode. It's like I can never meet a man who's masculine enough, right? Or they find themselves in relationships where their partner is not really owning the masculine energy space, largely because she has the whole time, you
Right.
know,
Right.
like there hasn't
Totally.
been room for it, which was very much my marriage, you know? And so being able to work with women and be like, and like, hey, I can help you change your relationship by only working with you. And
Totally.
you'll
Absolutely.
see how things are going to change. And I have worked with clients in that way where I'm like, okay, here are the things I want you to do. And it's not even big things a lot of time. It's sometimes just like shift how you speak to him just this way, just a little bit, and let me know what happens. And then it's like an immediate like, oh my gosh, here's how he responded. Like what he never usually offers to do XYZ or da da da. I'm like, see, so like shift how
Yeah.
you talk, like speak in a more feminine way. And that doesn't mean like how it sounds per se or anything like that, but I'll just an example. And this is like a really simple one is like if we think about feminine energy is the realm of emotions and feelings, right? And masculine energy is more the realm of thoughts and logic. And so when you're speaking to a man and you're saying as your partner or man you're dating, whoever, right? And you're saying like, well, I think it would be like this, da 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 da. You're speaking to him in a masculine energy way. And it's very, very subtle, right? But on on like a really fundamental energetic wiring kind of level, you're talking to him as like you're speaking to his male brain, but speaking as how a man is going to speak. So
Yeah.
you're coming at him with masculine energy. And so a very easy shift in this way, which isn't about like changing who you are, right? Because another thing, and this drives me crazy, and we can get into it more, is like there's so much on social media. Women are like, well, if he doesn't like me for all that I am and blah, 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 then he doesn't deserve me. I'm like, okay, sure, to a certain extent. And like, how's that working for you? You know,
Right.
because
Right. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
right. And so, one of the shifts, right, is instead of like, well, I think that, or da da da, whatever, is shifting to feeling based language. And that's not about being ruled by your feelings or anything like that, but saying something like, oh, it would make me feel so like relaxed and supported and taken care of if you did this. Or when you do this, it makes me feel so XYZ. Right. And
Yes.
you will be so surprised at that simple shift. Right. So instead of like like your experience living up in your head and communicating with him that way. Again, it's masculine energy to masculine energy.
Mhm.
Be in your feeling, like connect with your feeling. Ooh, how would, if he did this, which is what I want him to do, I'm not going to say, I think you should blah, 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 blah.
Right.
How would him doing this make me feel? Okay, great. Like, and communicate it that way, right? Because men aren't usually communicating with each other from their feelings like that. It's much more logic based. And so that type of communication is going to feel different and it's going to activate him in a way that he's not usually activated out in the like normal world. So that's like one small shift. And
Mhm.
it also helps women practice being in their feminine because it's going to force you to
Right.
get more connected with your feelings and what would
Totally.
feel good to you in your sensory experience,
Mhm.
right? And like you want to feel good, right?
Yeah.
Don't we talk, so many women talk about this like soft life and like I want the princess treatment and all this kind of stuff. And we want that because of how it makes us feel,
Right. Correct.
you know? And so
Absolutely.
connect with how it makes you feel. And something that's so cool, the man that I'm seeing, who is wonderful, he all the time, especially in the beginning, but all the time tells me, he's like, I just love the way you talk. He's like, it's so unique and it's not how most people talk and it's so feminine. He's like, you're always like, oh, it would feel so good, blah, 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 blah. Or like when I do this, like, you know, I'm being, he's like, because I like to say, oh, I'm being gently productive right now. He's like, it just sounds so like luxurious and girly. I'm like, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so sometimes they'll even be like, can you like tell me my day in the way that you talk? I want to just see how it feels. And I'm
Oh,
like, sure. Right.
I love that.
Yeah. And so it's just that like activating a man in a way that he's not used to being activated. And that's one of our like really cool gifts as women. And one of the things too that will get a man emotionally attached to you, right? Is being able to activate his emotions that way. Because when he feels that like yummy emotional activation and experience with you, he's going to want more of that. So, like I
Yay.
said, even with like my man, right? Like being like, you know, him being like, wait, tell me, like, explain your day to me the way that you talk. I'm like, okay, I'm just talking, you know. He's like, oh, I just love how you talk about things. So easy. It's
Yeah,
simple.
I love that.
Yeah.
It is so true. I mean, yes, that is like I always say like the let down the mothering energy, right? Like it's like the he already has a mom. We don't need any more
Yeah.
to
Oh my
be like
gosh.
you need to be doing this, you should be doing this, blah 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 blah. And I mean, like even it's so funny because like I have a tendency to like get triggered with my own mother, like because my mom will like shit on me. I'm like,
Yeah.
stop disempowering me. Like I know what to do. But it's the
Yeah.
same thing for a man. Like if the woman is constantly mothering him, like, babe,
Oh,
why didn't you take out the trash? Like blah blah. It's like
yeah.
nagging and be like, I love when you take out the trash. It makes
Yeah.
me feel so good when you take out the trash.
Yeah. Like it makes me, yeah, even that, like, I'm like, it makes me feel like such a girl when you do these things. Thank you. Right. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like silly like that. Like I'm like
Use your
being kind of sweet.
muscles.
Yeah. Like today, this is so dorky. Today, I legitimately could not unscrew the dang top of my freaking Stanley thing. And
Yeah.
I was at the gym and he was there. And I'm like, I just text him, hi, I need your muscles. Like 2 seconds later, he's like, hey, what do you need?
Oh,
Will
that
you
is so,
unscrew this, please? Thank you.
I love
And
that.
it's like, and like I legitimately couldn't. I'm like, I don't know if I
Right.
like did I just put lotion on? Like, what is going on? I'm stronger than this cup, you know? But it's even those like little things, right? And the mothering thing, that's a huge thing because mothering energy, this is interesting. Mothering energy is masculine energy because it's very like leadership, taking care of stuff, action, like all of that. So mothering energy is masculine, right? But in a motherly way,
Right.
right?
Right.
But the like nagging mothering, like treating him like he doesn't know how to take care of himself, like what happens when you're not around to tell him
Right.
what to do,
Right.
like goodness, you know, like that is one of the biggest killers to polarity, to attraction, and like will one push a man away, but also like, I mean, not to get like dark and toxic, but like makes men cheat because they're like, you're like, they don't want that kind of energy. And they also don't want to be intimate with someone who's giving them that kind of energy. Right. And so the mothering thing and then nagging, like you have to, again, when you communicate needs and desires and things like that, like in a more feminine way, it's more likely to get done. And two, because there are things where it's like, okay, I've like asked about this and I've brought this up like 3 times, right? Or whatever, like, is this not important to you? Are you not hearing me? Like there are times when it's like, okay, like I want to nag, but and I feel ignored. Like, what the heck is going on? Right. Where you can be like, hey, I brought this up 3 times. Like, is it what like it I'm starting to like it's starting to hurt my feelings that you're not doing it because I feel like what I want is not important and I feel like I'm like not a priority or whatever it is, right? And I've found that sometimes communicating like that is enough to just get it done nice and quick, right? But then two, it's okay if you've asked this multiple times. I mean, you can get somebody else to do what you need done, right? Or you like withdraw your energy, but like putting in more and like nagging or picking fights isn't really effective. And it's not a good use of your time either, right? So like, yeah, bringing it up, but then also too with the nagging stuff and the mothering stuff is like, if you ask for something, right? If you haven't given like a timetable on when you would like that or whatever, but maybe you've asked a couple more times, like not putting like annoyed, pissed off energy, but again, that like open, like, hey, like I've asked for this, like I've mentioned this like 3 times. It'd be really helpful for me or really important to me if you did that. Like, I'm starting to feel like it's not a priority for you just based on it not being done. Like, like, can I get some clarity on what's going on or some insight from you, like that sort of thing. Just to like be open and curious, but then also you got to trust that the man is going to do stuff and that he'll do it in an effective way. It may not be exactly the way that you want it done or you think it should be done, but like trust that if he's like a capable adult man, he like trust that he's going to take care of shit,
Yeah, absolutely.
And if consistently he doesn't and you're asking for things and consistently it doesn't get done or it doesn't happen, then you get to have a bigger conversation around like, okay, what is there a communication issue? Most likely not. Is there a communication issue? Is there a like you don't care about what's important to me issue sort of thing? Or like just what would help me get my point across more, or just like, what can we do to communicate better and stuff? Cause I'm feeling like ignored or whatnot. And then if that stuff keeps happening, then maybe that's not the person for you.
Right.
Or maybe you, depending on whatever it is, maybe you choose to not care so much about that thing. Right. Like if it's, he doesn't load the dishwasher the way that I like. Okay, then like maybe mention it a few times, but like at the end of the day, is the dishwasher getting loaded?
Right.
Are the dishes getting washed?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Is it that big of a deal? And like, if it is that big of a deal, then maybe that becomes your job to do only.
Right.
It has to be done a certain way and he's just not doing it. But again, and then we get the like, I'm now just keep going. Then we get the like argument of like, then it's weaponized incompetence and he's going to do things wrong so that he has to do less. Sure. There are absolutely men like that. But then there are absolutely men and women like that. But that's when then like you make sure these like responsibilities are balanced. Like one of the things for me when like I live in my own house and thankfully my gardeners roll out my trash bins to the curb every week, but I'm responsible for rolling them back. And I'm also responsible for taking my trash in my house out to the trash bins. But one of the things that will be changing whenever I next live with a man, I'm never touching trash again.
Right. You're going to love the way he takes the trash.
And so, exactly. And so I'm not going to complain about how that man takes out the trash because I don't want to be touching it.
Right. Yeah.
Unless there is trash piling up in our home and causing a health concern.
Right.
I don't care. Choose your battles.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. No, I love that. I think, I mean, where do you, okay, let me ask you this. Where
Yes.
do you feel like a lot of that stems from in women? Like,
What
why do
specifically?
they feel like the control, like the
Mm,
need to control and nag and,
yeah. Several things. So a lot of women today are very much in their masculine energy dominantly. And that is a result of many factors, largely for those who are listening in their like 20s, 30s, even 40s, right? Growing up in a very masculine energy world, right? Like a very masculine dominant world. So, in order for us to be successful, right? And everyone's definition of success is different, but in order for us to be successful and be able to support ourselves, right? And pay our own bills and stuff like that, which is a necessary thing as an adult human being, right? Like, in order to get ahead, in order to be successful, it is more advantageous for us to be in our masculine energy most of the time, right? And granted, which is so much of the work that I do with women, is like, okay, how do I still have success while being in my feminine energy? Like, how do I still like crush it or find that balance of masculine and feminine and be successful, right? Because it is possible, but we're like, we live in a masculine energy world. And so, in order for us to be successful, it's been more helpful to be in our masculine, right? And if we wanted to have accomplishments, or if you played sports, you're more likely to be getting those things and achieving and succeeding by way of your masculine energy. So that's one reason. A lot of things too is like trauma and stuff like that is a big reason why a lot of women will be in their masculine energy as their default, because it's protective, right? It's going to protect you. Like, and that's one of the things about masculine energy is it is the like protector energy. It is the like safety and boundaries and stuff like that, like the structure. And so if you've experienced trauma, right, that made your feminine energy feel unsafe or made you feel unsafe, a lot of the times the reaction, right, or the result of that is, okay, well, I'm just going to be like hard in my masculine because that keeps me safe, you
mm-hmm.
know. And so that's one thing. But then too, like, especially because I work with a lot of like high achieving women and a lot of entrepreneurial women too. So it's getting again that like in order to be successful in running your own business or like climbing the ranks in the corporate world, again, like you need to be a lot of the time in your masculine energy to do that, you know? And so when you're in that energy so much of the time and that becomes your default, even if naturally that's not your preferred place, we get so used to operating that way that it becomes our default and it feels like our natural state. But what I've seen is so many women who operate that way, they're like, yeah, but I'm exhausted. Like my soul feels so depleted. Like, sure, I've got all the success and I'm like, my resume is amazing. And look at like my home and I get to travel or whatever. Right. And like, I have all this money, but feeling so like restricted and like soul depleted. And so when we're operating that way, it's really exhausting on a soul level a lot of the time. But then it's hard to shift into feminine when you're so used to running that way, right? And so where back to your question of like why are so many women in that controlling energy is because so many women are operating in their masculine energy as their default. And then I will say too, like there is a not a shortage, but we also don't have a lot of like really like healthy embodied masculine men. There are plenty out there, ladies, so don't be thinking like, oh, there are none out there, like I'm doomed. Not at all. But there I I believe has been an attack on masculinity and healthy masculinity. Anything that's like that's seen as more traditionally masculine is like called toxic no matter what, even if it's not. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of so there are a lot of men who I think need better role models and better leaders in men to learn how to be healthy masculine men. And then there have also, and I think this has shifted in the last like 2 years, but there's also like been a big like attack on masculinity and on men as well, which like leaves men in a really crappy position because they're like, oh, well, I'm not supposed to like act like a manly man because like the news or social media or women or whatever are like going to scream at me for it. And so that leaves a lot of men feeling weird and uncertain, right? Of how to act and stuff like that. And I think there are also a lot of weak men out there. A lot of
Yeah.
weak men out
there. Mm-hmm.
and so it's a combination of a lot of things. And I think too, like one of the other factors is the like modern feminism. Like we had a lot of amazing things with the feminist movement that were necessary, right? For equal rights, all that kind of stuff, giving women the choice. Oh, do I want to like stay at home or do I want to work and have a really like awesome career? And it made a lot of women, and I think our generation is really seeing the results of this because like our moms like really saw the like initial wave of that, right?
Yeah.
And so for a lot of women in our generation, we're like breaking the programming of like, oh, to be successful, you have to be like a man, or you're exactly like a man, like that kind of stuff. And so it's like put women in a weird place, put men in a weird place. And so I think like a lot of women don't know what it means to like be in your feminine energy, but also be like so powerful in that, because a lot of women think that femininity is like, oh, I have to be like meek and submissive and not speak up very much and be quiet and like only wear floral dresses and stuff like that. When it's like, no, there's like so many other flavors of feminine energy.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah.
That's hilarious. Sorry, I had
So yeah, so I think it's a combination of things. It's like a
yeah.
lot of women stuck in their masculine energy and they don't know how to shift into their feminine, and for a variety of reasons. And then yeah, there's a lot of like weak men out there, and like one of the solutions to that is because one of the problems, and this is one of my like biggest things with like so much of this discourse on social media, is like shitty men keep acting shitty because too many women allow that kind of behavior. Yes, men don't call them out and don't lead them and don't like cast them off from the herd, but then also like too many women accept that kind of shit behavior. And so if it works from the man's perspective, why does he need to change it?
Right. Absolutely.
Like men who aren't meeting your standards and stuff like that and aren't what you're looking for, they shouldn't get your attention, period.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. I mean, I entertained it for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. We all have from time to time.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
But it feels so much more peaceful not entertaining that. Like peace that is within my body is like, oh my God, this feels so light and just a relief.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to deal with wondering where they are. Oh, we hung out last weekend, but now I haven't heard from them all week. And it's Friday night at 7:00. Still haven't heard from them. Oh, I guess we don't have plans this weekend. Like, okay. It was like the anxiety from all of that was just like, why would we continue to put ourselves through that?
Exactly. And so it's so much, and like, why do women put themselves through that? Right. Like some of the answers to that. And again, like I'm going back to this and I may say it again a few more times, but like the more women tolerate and accept subpar behavior and treatment, the more it will continue, because men are only going to do what they are required to do. Right. Yeah. If all he has to do is show up the way he's showing up in order to get access to your body, get access to your attention and your energy. Right. Because some might not, like, sure, they all generally want to have sex with you, but sometimes what's good enough is like having the ego stroke from just like chit chatting with you on the phone or texting with you. Right. Or one of the gifts, like don't underestimate how magical and like special your feminine energy is. So for a man to even be able to have a conversation with you, that's a gift for him.
Right.
Okay. And so even you just entertaining a man in conversation who's shitty, like it gives him no motivation to change, no incentive to change or to do better. If you're still allowing him access to your energy, to your body, to your time, to your affection, whatever. Right. So until more women stop tolerating bullshit, it's going to continue. And I think a lot of women are stopping, right? And so that's one of the things too, is like, you have to like raise your standards, be so clear on what those standards are, and be firm with them, right? And firm with yourself too,
Mm-hmm.
because they're going to do whatever they can get away with most of the
Yeah,
time.
most of the time.
And being realistic on like, okay, if you've got standards that are like way up here, are you a match for those standards
Right,
too?
right, right.
You know, and that doesn't mean you have like, if you're like, oh, well, I want to date a man who's making this much so I can like be stay-at-home wife, or like when I have kids not have to work, right? So that doesn't mean, oh, then you also have to be making that much. It's again, it's not like, oh, if I want a man who's da 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 da, then I also have to be da 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 in the exact same ways. No, but you need to be the counterpart to the
Mm-hmm.
to that kind of man, and you need to be at least working on the things that that man would find desirable, right? And so I see a lot of women too having like these really high standards, which is amazing, but then it's like, okay, but are you holding yourself to a high standard? And it's not about like so that you can get the man, right? Like no. But like so that you can live the life that you want to live. And if a man and a family or a marriage is part of that, right? Like you owe it to yourself to be the best version of you so you can have the life that you want, whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but a lot of women entertain the breadcrumbs, entertain the bare minimum effort, entertain the BS, entertain the toxicity, the poor treatment, all that kind of stuff because like trauma bonds. You're wrapped up in a trauma bond. You're operating from your past pattern and programming, not from what you actually want, right? And
Yep.
a lot of women too, like would rather settle for someone crappy than be by themselves,
Mm-hmm.
which like that's something for me that thankfully, and this attachment theory, having
Yeah.
a fearful avoidant, aka disorganized attachment style, has never really been an issue for me.
Right.
Like I'm like I do not need to keep you around if you're annoying me, bye, I will
Right.
never think of you again. Right, like that sort of thing. But I know this piece is really hard for someone who has maybe an anxious attachment, right? Is like I can't be alone, and so a lot of women will settle for poor treatment, bare minimum, like all that kind of stuff because they would rather have the attention and someone
Right.
than nothing.
Right. Yeah. And they're not. That's when they have to leave. That's when, if anyone's listening that is resonating with this, and you're like, I'm in this situation right now. Um, that's when like you got to start dating yourself. Like
Yeah,
that was, I mean, granted, I will say, like, I feel like I was like, we're always healing, right? Like, we're always like, there's
yeah,
some new triggers popping up or whatever. But with that being said, like, I knew, like, I had this whole, like, kind of like a knowing doing gap. It's like, I know, but I keep doing it. I know,
yeah,
but I keep doing it. And but I mean, earlier, a few years ago, it was like, that's kind of what I kept doing, though. I was like, I've done so much healing. Like, I've done so much work on myself. Why do I keep entertaining this? Like, but
yeah,
it's a lot. I feel like I probably needed like consistent, like weekly therapy after like Love is Blind came
yeah,
out. Like, it was just,
mm,
I had a lot of like dysregulated nervous system shit
yeah,
go on. And it was like continuous. I felt like it was a constant thing for a few years that
yeah,
I just couldn't
yeah.
get
That was
it.
a huge thing.
It was very huge. Yeah. And I like, of course, like I worked with coaches and that was very helpful, but I feel like I still needed some guidance and support around that whole scenario. And
Yeah.
I mean, granted, over time, I think like everything, I feel so much better now. And my standards are definitely better. And I will say in the last like, I don't know, probably like 8 months or so, that has been the biggest turning point for me.
Mm,
Because I was still entertaining last year.
yeah,
And I'm like, oh,
yeah,
again, like, what are like, better. Like, and,
right,
it was just so interesting. And like, I even had a conversation with one guy that I entertained. Um, and I was just like, I'm sorry. Like, I am taking full responsibility for my neediness, like anxious attachment
mm,
style energy that I am sending you because like I do know better. And I am
yeah,
like,
yeah,
back me on the hand. I know better. That is
yeah,
That is extremely unattractive. I get it.
It's
That's
it's
also a hard
hard.
with me.
It's hard sometimes when we're like, oh, I see that I'm operating from my pattern and my wounding, and yet I'm still doing it. Like that's when it like you feel insane, you know?
Yeah.
And regardless of what it is, whether it's dating or otherwise, I know it's a lot harder often with dating, right? But yeah, and so sometimes it's yes, in the form of coach, friends, whoever, right? But also sometimes, unfortunately, it's like you either need to just like get so sick of yourself with it, like almost like give yourself the ick
Yeah.
from your own
Yeah.
behavior where you're like, ew, what am I doing?
Right.
What am I
Right.
doing? If someone like, if my friends knew how I was acting or something like that, like if they knew how I was behaving,
Right.
what am I doing? Right. To get you to finally stop, right? Giving yourself the ick. If he's not
Mhm.
giving you the ick, you can figure out how to give yourself the ick to
Oh
be
yeah.
done.
Oh yeah.
Right. But sometimes, unfortunately, so many people have to like keep seeing how hot the stove is, right? You're like, I know that stove is really hot,
Let me burn my
but
hand.
what if it's less hot this time?
Yeah.
You know what? You know what? Maybe it's a little less hot. So I'm going to try it one more time. Actually, you know what? I think since the last time I touched the stove, I actually formed some scar tissue. So I don't think it's going to hurt me as bad this time. I'm going to go touch it one more time.
It's so
Right?
true.
When it's like sometimes you just then have to like you just really have to like grab the stove even hard. Like you have to get really messed up by it and then be like, what? Oh, like I
Right.
knew it. I saw the red flags. I saw the warning signs. I touched the stove more times than I should have. I really had to touch it again to where it burnt my whole hand off,
Right.
like, and sometimes that's just the journey that people choose to take because you have like whatever the lesson is there or the thing you need to see to like change that pattern, you have to like do it the really hard, sucky way, which
Yeah.
is unfortunate.
Yeah.
And which is also like so much of like what I hope to help people with. Like it just helps somebody like finally end a like narcissistic relation, like a relationship with a narcissist and stuff like that, which again was like, so it's that same sort of cognitive dissonance of like, I see all the evidence of why this is a no. And yet I'm still wanting to go back and stuff like that. Right. And so it's exhausting to be that person in that experience. Right. And it does often take like, unfortunately, like repeated times of like dipping back in and being like, why did I think it was going to change again? It again was the exact same experience that I always have been having. Right.
Yeah.
And just getting to that point, hopefully before too much time and energy is wasted, before too much trauma happens, before something bad happens, hopefully getting to that point where you're like, I'm I'm fed up with his behavior, but I'm also fed up with my behavior. Like I'm better than this.
Right.
Like
Yes.
I'm better than this. What am I doing? Like, why do I think I'm not better than this? Right. Because that's part of it too, is like, you often don't think when people do that, it's like, you don't think that you're better than that, which is why you keep going into that.
Right.
You don't,
Right. Yeah.
you're,
It's a
so it's
worth
like an
it.
operating from scarcity and from a lack of self-worth of being like, well, this might be the best I could ever have. Right. So I'll
Right.
accept the shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because like that narrative with that person never played out for me in the sense of like, this might be the as good as it gets kind of thing.
Mhm.
It was more like I feel like I remember questioning myself, like maybe I need to like do some like ancestral timeline stuff or something to see like where this deep rooted problem around letting go is coming
Mm.
from. Like it's as though like sure, there's certain things I'm like, yeah, it doesn't serve you, let it go. But like
Yeah.
in that regard, maybe in more of a romantic regard, I'm like, nope, can't let
Yeah.
go. I just like I know
Well,
it's not serving me. It's not good. This is how it makes me feel, and I keep doing it. Why can't I just let go? Like just let them go. And I'm always
mhm.
like, I mean, my mom always used to say, if it's like worth, they'll come back, right? Like let it go.
Yeah.
They'll come back if it's meant to be. And I'm like, okay, why can't I do that though? Like,
Did you ever kind of get an answer from yourself of like what it was that kept you holding on to it?
not really. No, I don't think I did.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
like letting go. I don't know.
But
Like,
there is a lot of truth to like ancestral stuff. And I know, well, when we talk for my podcast, we'll talk about some of the God journey stuff, and we may even for the rest of our time today.
No,
But one of the big shifts in my own journey, and this was, yes, very much related to relationships, but not just like romantic dating relationships, family relationships. I also saw this coming up in business stuff for me, and also like in my habits with how I ran my own business, like, and with my money is I used to very much. We're going to get spiritual, gaudy,
So we can,
God a little bit right now, but like you
good.
can have like a spirit of, for example, narcissism that is in your lineage, right? And so that's something that was very much in my lineage, and something that I noticed that, you know, I've dated a like severe narcissist, also dated most likely a sociopath. He could have been a narcissist, but hid some of the narcissistic traits, but probably a sociopath as well. And like those are extreme situations. And but I've also like attracted other narcissists in my past. Like never again, most of my dating experience has been like largely positive and really good. And there've been a couple of like messed up outliers as well that I learned big lessons from. And so for me, there was one, it was 2022. I noticed, I got really aware of that pattern popping up. Like, okay, where this is in my family. And then seeing like, okay, where has this shown up in my romantic relationships? This same theme, the same thread, the same spirit of narcissism. Where have I seen this in business relationships? Because I got scammed out of a bunch of money around that same time from someone who is playing those same kind of patterns, but in a business kind of way, the breadcrumbing, the like all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is affecting a lot of areas of my life. Interestingly, sure, there's been a couple that's affected me in a romantic relationship sense. And I've seen when others have tried to date me, and I like see it pretty fast, right? But I'm like, but this is actually more like embedded in me, and like allowing that kind of energy into my life. This is more embedded in me than I realized. And so it does take, and so those sorts of things, right? Because I'm like, well, this didn't start with me, because I can see it in my parents, I can see it in grandparents, I can like, this is a generational thing, right? And so these sorts of spirits, without getting a little too weird for the audience.
No, now that you're like bringing it up,
right?
I'm like, I'm bringing a conversation, so I'll share my conversation with you next.
So these sorts of spiritual forces can attach themselves to your lineage, right? And if somebody in your ancestral lineage has allowed that spirit to take hold in some way, it can get passed along until somebody, because it gets permission from the first person who opens the door and lets it take a stronghold. And so it can stay in that family until somebody decides to end it. Right. And so I very much believe that was attached, and I was seeing the results of it in my own life, not from my own doing, right? Because it was stuff from before I was born. And so being like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing how this is showing up in my life. And like, I need to like get this demon out of here, you know? And so those sorts of things absolutely can happen in that way. And it takes a lot of strength, a lot of internal work, a lot of commitment to yourself, a lot of commitment to your vision to break those things.
I feel that. Yeah. Right. When you asked me if I like knew where it was coming from, no, at that time. But now that you just said all of that, I was like, wait, no, I do.
Yeah.
Two things. I will say, I mean, obviously, again, we're gonna pivot to our spiritual journeys. I think, and maybe because it is so fresh for me, part of it, the first thing is like why I couldn't let go is because like the faith and the trust, right? Like that God has a plan, right? And like of course I thought that, and God, universe, like they got a plan for me. Like I know there's something higher taking me somewhere, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I know that, but the ultimate like trust and faith that that belief is true, maybe.
Mm.
I was not there yet, whereas right now
Yeah.
I'm like I can't say that I'm like, yeah, 100% like all believing,
Yeah.
everything. I mean, this is all very, very new to me.
Yeah.
Something even like a therapist shared with me, I don't know, probably like 2 years ago. She had me recite, like I'm learning. Well, no, she would ask me, do you love yourself? I
Mm.
was like, yeah, I guess. And she was like, kind of like, no, no, you don't, because you wouldn't
Yeah.
read it kind of thing. And then she would also ask me, do I love God? Do I love and trust God? And I would kind of say the same thing, like, yeah, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and she was
Mm.
like, no, you don't even believe that coming out of your mouth. So what I
Yeah.
want you to say is, I am learning to trust and love myself. I am learning to trust and love God.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
that was very beautiful. And I think now, even because I have started to pivot things, like I'm even using that mantra a lot more right now because I'm like, I still can't wrap my head around all
Yeah.
the things. And it's like,
Yeah.
wait, this like one thing is doing all the things. Like it's still a lot. But so I think that's a big part of it. But what I was gonna say the second and what you mentioned about the spirit stuff. So, and I'm gonna dive deep with this on your podcast. The story of how the whole Bible, like everything, my
Yeah.
whole
Yeah. Yeah.
faith
We'll get
journey.
into it.
Yes. But basically this person, it was a former pastor, and he was like, you have a spirit of rejection around you.
Oof.
And I was like, wow. And he
You're
was like,
like, thanks.
yeah.
You're like, I didn't, geez. You're like, maybe I've thought that like,
Yeah.
you're like, that's a rough way to put it.
Yeah, but I was like, but ever since he said it, I was like, damn, he's right. Like so I think that that is a big part of why I had a problem letting go, because the rejection, like,
Mm.
although like I would be necessary if I'm letting someone go, it's rejection, but it almost is like I'm so intertangled that it's such a
But it's also, yeah, but it's also too like you having to say no and step away and be like, no, this isn't good enough for me. I don't want this. That's also you acknowledging that you're the way that this is going to come out of my mouth is going to sound really harsh. But like if that person wasn't stepping up in the way that you wanted, wasn't pursuing you in the way that you wanted, wasn't giving you the love, affection, attention, all of that, the treatment that you wanted, right? On a level, they rejected you,
right.
right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so then you being like, no, I'm done with this. I don't even want the attention from you. That's like an acknowledgement of the truth of that quote unquote rejection, right?
Right.
Does that make
Yeah, yeah,
sense?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely, it does. But yeah, it was
Yeah.
so all of that together. Yes,
Yeah.
I feel like I think that's why. But I have been so much better. Like I said, I feel like even like just over these like last 8 months, things have just been like a lot better. I'm even just like hyper aware when I like start to kind of go back into that like
Yeah. One of my
needy,
favorite
anxious
one of
behaviors.
one of the things, and that has been such a in the last like really year and a half, I would say, since like really reclaiming my faith and like all of that has been such a huge shift for me is like really, really trusting God with my whole life, like with my life, not just be like, oh, I trust God, and then being like, and it's up to me, like,
Right,
but
right,
like
yeah.
really trusting God. And so, like, one of my favorite prayers to do is saying, like, God, if this isn't for me, then take it away and take it away
I say
fast.
things like that too.
Yeah,
Yes.
this isn't for me, take it away. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes too, when I'm like saying that about something that I want, I'm like, God, I'm like, I'll be really like kind of whiny about it. I'm like, listen, I want this to be part of your plan for me because I really like it and I want this. But if it's not, can you let me know? Can you like let me know? Right.
Right.
Like I'm like,
Yeah.
I want it. But I only want what you want for me because I know that you the plan you have for me is so much better than any plan I could think of, because my tiny human brain cannot even like fathom what yours can fathom. Like you created every single thing in the entire universe. I'm not nearly that creative. Right. And so like anything that you have planned for me is going to be so much better than my beautiful but limited human imagination is. So like if this thing that I love and that I want is not part of your plan, I completely trust that, like, one, take it. Like it's take it, right? And I so trust that you've got something even better for me. Like, and that's a scary level of trust to step into, but it's beautiful. And the more that I've done that with like so many things in my life, career, like dating, like all of money, the more that I've done that, the more like the blessings happen. Cause I'm like, oh, I was trying to control the process so much. And which is so interesting, because that's one of the places where I saw that hyper independence, right? That masculine energy, hyper independence. That's where I saw that showing up, because I don't really see that very much anymore for myself. And I was like, oh, I'm like telling God what I want, like the vision. Right. And then I'm like praying about it and stuff like that. And when something bad happens, I'm like, God, I trust that there's a bigger plan and all that kind of stuff. It's okay. Like, I know you've got my back. And when amazing things happen, I'm like, so grateful. Like, thank you, God, like all this kind of stuff. I'm like, but the journey I'm carrying completely on my back.
Right.
That's not how you want it for me.
Right.
Because you also want me to have the soft princessy life. You know, and I'm like,
right.
Like, so why I need to involve you more in every step of the way, not just like, here's what I want, and now I'm going to work hard all by myself to make it happen. And then when it's done, I'm going to thank you, or I'm going to just say, oh, I trust you if it goes wrong. Right. Like, so that was a huge thing. And even like with the man I'm with now, like in the beginning, I would say that prayer all the time. And I would say the first like 3 weeks, maybe I was like, cool, but like, we'll see, you know, we'll see. And so I was saying that prayer like regularly. And I'm like, well, he's still here. So, okay. He's still here, you know? And even like now, with as like amazing as our relationship is and how wonderful he is, and like from my perspective right now, as we're recording this, like, and this has been the case for a while, like literally checks every single thing, like everything that I've prayed for in somebody and asked God for, this man is. And like how he treats me, like all the things, like even being like tall, has all his hair, like, right, like even down to the little silly things that are less important, right? I'm like, yeah, all the things, we're checking all the boxes. And even with how amazing all of that is, I still my prayers are, God, I don't do the like, if he's not for me, like yank him out of here sort of thing, because his feelings got hurt when I said that to him once. I was like, I shouldn't have told you that. He's like, oh. But because like, I'm like, even though this is so amazing, and like, sure, there are little things that I'd be like, oh, it'd be even better if it was like this, like, you know, right? I could nitpick it. Of course I could, but it's so good. It's so good. And he is so good. Even then I'm like, and God, if this isn't your plan, I'm down. I'm open for what your plan is. Right. Because like, I want to, in my work, in who I love, in my friendships, in my family, like I want to have children one day, like all of that. Like I want on my life on earth to be used in the way that God has envisioned. Because again, like if I believe, and I do, that God created the entire universe and everything in it, everything that was, that is, that will be, like that imagination and that creative power is like infinitely bigger than mine could ever be. And so if whatever I think now is the best it could ever be, if that gets taken from me or changes, I have to believe that there's something bigger, right? Or I have to believe that then that wasn't like what God wants to use me for. It may have been for that season, but it's not anymore. And I have to trust that, because like I very, very much believe that God's plan for my life is going to give me the best life.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I love that. I love that just perspective and belief and
Yeah. And sometimes it sucks because there
yeah.
have been times like even all with the my current relationship, and again, like this, it's like, you know, well, offline I can tell you more, but like I'm like it's like
It
I'm like, God, you
did
were
it.
listening to all the every single thing. And thank you.
I love
Right.
that.
And the fun fact for him too, he's like literally down to the like the all the really random specific details. I'm like, interesting, funny how that works, right?
Um,
Um, and so even that, right? I'm like, this is so good and thank you, but it's like trusting that like and even like when stuff has been hard with him, like we've had a couple moments that have been really uncomfortable or a couple of like really uncomfortable conversations to have. And so like I've in that place when I'm like, oh, we're gonna have a really tough talk tomorrow or something or this weekend. And I'm like, that could be the end, right? That conversation could be a deal breaker for me or for him, right? And knowing that like, okay, if it is, that's going to suck and I'm going to be so sad and disappointed, but I'll be able to move through it because I trust God,
right.
right? And always that like even when it's felt like shit, and I talk to God very honestly, and I'll be like, hey, this sucks right now. Like this sucks right now. And all I want is for it to be fixed and to feel better and to be awesome again and da 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 da. And like, if he's not like, if this isn't it, like get him out of here. But also if it is like, just like give me the patience or give me the wisdom or give me whatever I need to like be in this really crappy phase of it and like get through it in the way that you want and with the like the best wisdom and guidance possible.
Yeah, I love
Like,
that.
yeah. So like even
Yeah,
trusting when the stuff doesn't feel good.
absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. How did
Mm-hmm.
you, okay, so this was this has been very interesting for me. I was telling friends of mine that are, praising me for my spiritual journey lately because they're pretty Christian and I can't identify with that word yet. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm there yet. But
Okay.
it was really interesting. I told them, I was like, it's so fascinating because I want to say like a handful of these women that I have either like been in a coaching group with, or I've been mentored by, or other coaches that I follow online. I said in the last 2 years, like there's a handful of y'all that just like went like speaking
Yeah.
about universe to now speaking about God. And it's been
Yeah.
like fascinating to watch. And I'm like, wow, we're all on this like journey together.
It's so interesting. Yeah.
But how
Yeah.
did that pivot? Like what happened? There had to have been something
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
okay.
So and I will tell you, but I'm also going to say I recorded I think first 2 or 3 episodes of my podcast this year for 2025. I think they probably came out in February, but I did like a whole 2-parter on that journey for myself. So if someone wants like the deep, like all the specifics of it, go listen to those because like almost 2 hours long. But basically, like the bullet points, I was raised Christian, loosely Christian, believing in God, go to church during holidays, stuff like that. Parents had both been raised Catholic, were not practicing or anything. My grandmother, my mom's mom, very devout Catholic, church every weekend, would watch like she'd have like pastors like doing sermons on the TV like all the time, all of that. But never really like a very active relationship with God growing up. When we moved, like I forget what year it was. I was probably in like 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, something like that, elementary school. We moved out to the country. And there was a church near where we moved to, and my parents decided, oh, well, let's start going to church as a family. And it was a Lutheran church, which is is higher on the like traditional scale, like not necessarily Catholic, but like just a couple steps below that as far as like traditionalism and formality and stuff like that. And so I chose to get baptized I also chose to go through confirmation, which is like you do Bible study, you like learning about the Bible, all that kind of stuff. I chose to do that as well. So that was always something that was like interesting and important to me. And I think like so many of us in the coaching space and the spirituality space and the self-awareness space and all this kind of stuff, we all from a very early age have been very curious about how the world works, how people work, very curious about like there's got to be something more, like just like very curious about all that kind of stuff. And so that was kind of me like through high school. I very kind of surprisingly or randomly decided to go to a Christian college, which was like a very small Christian college, like 1,200 people. It was like a little smaller than my high school. And part of that decision was because it is in, or was still exists, but is in Montecito, California, which is in Santa Barbara. It's like the Beverly Hills of Santa Barbara. Gorgeous campus. You've got the mountains, you've got the beach. Like my college used to be an estate, right? Like, so it was like several estates converted into a college. It was gorgeous. It was so gorgeous. Such a small school. So it was like going to summer camp. It was amazing. But I had gotten recruited to play soccer there. I had also gotten a singing scholarship and a academic scholarship. I chose not to play soccer, but instead do a ton of music while I was there. So it was like, I had a lot of like financial incentive. I mean, it was a private school, so it was expensive, but I had a lot of financial incentive. It was like, I loved how like small and like communal it was and everything. And so chose to go there, which was kind of a random decision for me. I went to a public high school, like wasn't super like involved in church or like connected, didn't feel super connected to God per se, like didn't have a personal relationship with God. I thought I would think, though I like don't even remember like what that looked like or felt like. But then in college, that's where I really like would say started to own my faith journey and have a personal relationship with God and with Jesus. And then like continued to go to church, had a lot of Christian friends in college. It was a Christian college. Had a lot of Christian friends in college, after college, went to church consistently, all that kind of stuff. And then when I moved to LA in 2015 with my now ex-husband, he lived here, I moved to here. We kind of would go to church every once in a while. He wasn't really like believed in God, but like I was more the like one driving our like faith and religious kind of like habits and that stuff in the relationship. But we like kind of would go to church every once in a while, not really. So it wasn't really a big priority. And then, but like all the while still considering myself Christian. And then COVID happened and in COVID ended my marriage, and with like so many other things that were going on, had a big spiritual awakening around like, just kind of like around discernment, around like, seeing more of like how the world works and stuff like that, and consciousness and all of that, and started to dabble in a lot of new age stuff, but I didn't realize it was new age stuff. I didn't even know what new age meant. And if somebody, it's funny because I feel like my mom probably like called me new age at some point, but like I would have never thought of myself with that term.
Right.
And so the whole time while I'm like doing all these very new age things, like never like fully like jumped super hard in it, but was definitely teaching a lot of new age things and like dabbling in a lot of that for myself, and had a lot of my like, my grounding habits and practices for my mindset and stuff like that were very new age things. I never thought that I would have never thought of them with that term. And I also never thought that they were incompatible with Christianity. So while all that was happening, I'm like, oh, but I'm still a Christian. I still believe in Jesus. But I was like, but there's spirit guides also.
Right.
There's a committee. Yes, Jesus is at the front, but sometimes I might want to talk to this random freaking goddess or this spirit or that, right? Never realizing that, like, but always thinking that, oh, I'm still a Christian. This is all compatible with Jesus. My beliefs are just expanded. It's just an expanded understanding. It's a little bit more open-minded, like that kind of mindset. But part of that for me was which like is wrong. right? Like if I like that, if you're believing all of that stuff, that is, it's not compatible with Christianity, all the stuff that I was believing and doing and stuff like that. And for me, that was a matter of not knowing my Bible enough. Like, oh, I really think this is all compatible, but I also like don't know, you know? And so being like it was like a combination of being like ignorant for like about my beliefs and also a little arrogant of like, oh, well, I kind of know better. This is like a more expanded view and stuff like that. And but like the thing about a lot of those things, and this could open up like a whole deeper conversation that I don't know if we want to go into. We can, but the thing about a lot of those things is they work in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And but one of the things too, I mean, like, should I get intense? Should we
Yeah, well,
preach a little bit?
I was gonna say elaborate, because like elaborate on what those things are, if you
Yeah,
don't,
yeah, yeah.
because if someone's listening, they don't know.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
mean,
So
yeah,
yeah, so doing a lot of like full moon related stuff, a lot of like um affirmations, which I don't think are bad, right? Because that can help reprogram our mind and stuff like that. But a lot of like affirmations that are actually like in conflict, like a lot of like I would talk a lot about divine feminine, which I didn't even think of as being like, oh, like somebody pointed that out to me and I was like, oh, I'm not meaning that as like God. But then it's
right,
like, okay, but for me being like, okay, then why am I using that word? Because I shouldn't be using that word if it's I'm not talking about God,
right.
right? And so yeah, so like a lot of full moon stuff, a lot of stuff related to like astrology, and sure, there are certain like things that we can like connect with and stuff like that, but like a lot of stuff related to astrology. But for me it was a lot more of the new thought stuff. So there's a lot of new age things, and like even like buying certain crystals that I'm like, this crystal is going to help me with this, and so I'm going to wear it in my bra, which is like a tiny thing. Like I'm not like praying to them, but like even that like is a little like, okay,
Right.
like sure. And like all things hold energy, right?
Yeah.
And so that sure, there can be certain frequencies that absolutely from a scientific standpoint are going to be more effective with certain things than not, right? Like for instance, like sound bowls and sound healing. Like that's something that's very associated with new age. And there's also a lot of like there's scientific evidence that it does like help on a cellular level. So that's something that I'm like, no, this like that's great, right? But if I'm using that to like connect to other dimensions and realms and spirits, that's where we've gone a little too far,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so that kind of stuff. Like I was definitely connecting with other
Mm.
entities and beings and spiritual stuff, and thinking that they were good. And so things like doing, a lot of medicine journeys, ayahuasca, mushrooms and stuff like that. And there might be, and this is where like I'm maybe a little uneducated on it. Sure, there could be a way to do those things that is anchored in Jesus and God. And those things are risky to do because you are opening yourself up to other spiritual realms where there's a lot of like spirits and entities and energies that aren't good, right? Like
Right.
that stuff is real. That stuff's
Sure.
very real, right? And so a lot of the time when people in the like new age and consciousness space are like, oh, I'm like connecting with my spirit guides, those, according to what I believe, are not on your side ultimately,
Mm-mm.
even if they sometimes guide you to things that are good. Because if they weren't sometimes giving you wins, why would
Right.
you keep connecting with them?
Correct.
Right? Because if they're only guiding you to things that suck and cause problems, you're not going to keep connecting with them.
Right.
But if
Right.
they give you good things sprinkled with the shitty things too, it's hard
Mm.
to say like that's what's going on.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of like so a lot of those sorts of things like crystals, pulling oracle cards, like a lot of card deck stuff, a lot of like full moon related things. And again too, because I want to separate, right? That's not to say that the full moon isn't powerful and like what's happening with the moon isn't powerful, because as women, our bodies, like unless you're on birth control or something
Right.
like that, our bodies naturally sync with the moon.
Mhm.
So being connected to what's going on in the moon and understanding that's a really cool thing on like a biological, like feminine, scientific level.
Right.
Right. But
Agreed.
if I'm like, you know, thinking that the full moon is going to make big changes in my life, that's where I'm missing the mark, you
Mm.
know? And so it was like those sorts of things, which again they were pretty subtle. Like they were pretty subtle, you
Hmm.
know? But then too, the biggest one, which I kind of mentioned, is new thought, which is a lot more, and this one's going to sound a lot more familiar, I think, is the like, I am the cause and creator of everything in my reality,
Oh,
which, yeah. So on the one hand, right, like, yes, I am accountable for myself and my life, and I am a sovereign human being, and I get to be the like I have agency over my life and my body and my mind and all of that. And I get to take actions that are aligned with my vision, aligned with God, all of that. Right. So it's not about like not having agency, sovereignty, and like being a very active participant in your life, but the whole like, oh, I am the cause. And they're like how do I explain this best? Like, everything good in my life is because I've manifested it.
mm,
Everything bad in my life is because I've attracted it also. Right. And so it's that like toxic kind of spiritual healing loop that we can easily fall into, which I fell into a lot of like, well, if anything bad happens, what's the root of it? I caused it, which
right.
is exhausting. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's also like, well, if anything good happens, I did that too. So I need to do more of the things that create the good things in my life. And
Right.
again, on some level, yes,
Right.
right? If there are a lot of bad things happening in your life, you get to look at yourself and say like, okay, what am I doing that's contributing to this
Right.
situation, right? And sure, when you have good results, okay, what am I doing that's contributing to this situation? And yeah, I want to do more of these habits that are helping me have things go the way that I want, right? But there's that like really firm belief that like I am the end all be all of every single thing happening in my life. It's exhausting. Again, it's exhausting. And that for me was creating so much stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, oh my gosh, well, that launch didn't go the way I wanted because you know what? I probably didn't manifest hard enough. I probably didn't do this. I probably didn't do enough like meditating on it. I probably didn't like all that kind of stuff. And you just end up in this endless cycle. And one of the things that I would say is like, okay, when you're in doing all of these things, whether it's new age stuff like cards, tarot, astrology, crystals, like medicine journeys, or the new thought stuff, which is a lot of the like I am the start, the finish, the everything. And the thing about it is like it doesn't seem malicious. You're like, "Oh, but I'm taking responsibility for my life and my thoughts and my actions." That's a good thing, right? Yeah, it is. But when you are in this like vacuum of it's all me and only me, that's when the problem happens, right? And it leads to this again, like where you will nitpick so much of like, oh well, this went wrong because I must have done something wrong to make it bad. And you can go in this endless spiral forever and ever and ever with it either way. And so to zoom out and be like, okay, since I've been doing these things or believing in this, have the results of my life consistently improved or not? And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the big things. Like, is this actually getting me where I want it to get me?
Right.
And so those were a few things for me. So to kind of zoom out again, I there wasn't like a big like aha moment of being like a big come back to Jesus kind of moment. I started like probably 2 years ago or so, feeling this very like gentle invitation to like read my Bible again, you know, because I'm doing all these other spiritual things. And my brain's like, well, I've been a Christian for a long time. Like I know things. I went to a Christian college. I've taken world religions. I've taken Old Testament, New Testament, like all these Like I know a lot about this stuff already, right? Like, but I was like, okay. And I've also like never like, if I'm studying all these other spiritual things, I've never read my Bible from start to finish. You
Mhm.
know, I've not like, why am I not also studying this belief system that I am is the one I'm claiming? You know, I'm adding all these other random things in here.
Yeah.
Let's also like make sure I know my stuff here. And so it was just this like gentle like invitation, not from any external thing, that I was like pulled back into reading my Bible. And then I started noticing, like you, a lot of other people doing that. I was like, oh, interesting, interesting, interesting. And then same sort of thing. I was like, you know what? I'm going to get back into going to church. And it's so funny because like I have a home church here that I really love and would go to when I would go to church, but wasn't in a habit of it. And I started like 2 years ago, started riding horses on the weekends, and Sunday was my horse day. So I'm like, "Oh, I can't go to church. So I have the horses on Sundays, you know?" And then
Yeah.
I'm like, girl, move the horses to Saturday.
Right.
What are you
Right.
doing? Right. Like, so just like those little things that I'm like,
That's funny.
duh, you know? And so started going to church consistently and stuff like that. And again, getting into my Bible. And I started to notice that all those other things, the meditation, the like pulling cards, like all of that, I started to care less about that. So when I started to be back in my Bible, I didn't feel called to dabble in any of those things as much. Sure,
Mm.
sometimes, but not really. It was, and again, it wasn't like a conscious, like, this is wrong or bad or not compatible. It was just like, I just didn't feel like it so much
Right.
anymore. And then I started to notice too, like, so that continued to happen. And I started noticing also that I, the more I was focusing on like Bible, church, all of that, and actually like talking to God and praying to God, like the more things that I'd been praying for, hoping for, wanting, the more they started to like move forward.
Mm.
Right. And if there was like a big like kind of aha moment, so I'd already like shifted quite a bit back in and noticed like a few of my good girlfriends who were on a similar journey, and one of them in particular, and she and I are going to launch a podcast talking about this stuff a lot more actually
Love
soon.
it.
So stay tuned. But I was like, hey, we haven't talked in a while because she lives across the country. But I'm like, we haven't talked in a while, but I just saw that you're like going to church now on the weekend. Like she is like way more into this stuff than I was ever. Right. And I was like, I saw you're going to church and carrying a Bible. Like, I think we need to have a catch up call because I've been going back to church too. And like, what is going on? Right. And so, such similar journeys of starting to look at all these other things. And for me, it was like, okay,
Mm.
so I started adding all these random like practices, habits, and beliefs into my own belief system and into my life. And I didn't actually know where they were coming from. I didn't actually know the roots of these practices that I was doing or why. Right. And then like, maybe I should look a little bit more closely at these things, you know, and starting to understand those things more. And so my big kind of like my like I said, I already like kind of recommitted my life back to Jesus and God. But I last year was having a lot of ADHD symptoms. And to the point where like it was really, really hard to like sit down and focus and like actually do the things that I needed to do to like, I don't, you know, like survive and stuff. Not survive, I'm being dramatic, but like I'm like, okay, why can't I sit and like be productive for more than 2 hours? Like, what is going, like, this is so hard. And it was taking so much energy to like, I would have to like do so much grounding and prep and like all this kind of stuff. And like, okay, this system and now this system to like keep me focused for like
Mm.
2 3 hours. And I was like, it's taking a lot of work to manage how my brain is operating right now. And so that had gotten kind of progressively worse to the point where I was like, you know what? Maybe I should explore medication, ADHD medication. Never been medicated for like anything like that, or really anything ever in my life. And I was like, you know what? But like, this is actually getting in the way. Like, it's just way too much work. And maybe my pride and my ego is getting in the way. And I just need to like ask for some help, right? Like with this. And so I had a conversation with a therapist, and who could not prescribe me stuff, but just like an initial conversation. And she referred me somewhere else, but had a conversation with her. And immediately after that conversation, like got off the phone and like just started sobbing. And it was very freeing in the conversation. But as soon as I hung up, started sobbing. And I remember I was in my bedroom and I literally I'm like sitting down, crying, talking to God. And I'm like, oh, it gets me emotional every time I talk about this. And I'm like, God, I'm like, this isn't working. I'm like, and I had already been in quite a habit of being like, okay, I'm only involving God like in the end, and like when things are really good and they work, or when they're, I'm like not bringing him along for the journey. And so I'd already been like in this habit of like talking to God throughout the day and being like, this is annoying, or I'm stressed, or I'm imposter syndrome, right? Get it out of here, like that kind of stuff. But still, the focus was really hard. And so after that conversation, like I said, I'm sobbing and I'm like, God, I'm like, I don't want to go on medication for this. I'm like, I don't like, and again, if that's your journey and that's what you're doing for yourself, that's total, like, you need to do what works for you. And though, to my previous comment, like, I very much believe that ADHD and the symptoms, like that's a very spiritual thing. And so I'm like crying and I'm like, God, I don't want to go on medication. Like, I love my personality. I love how my brain works most of the time. It makes me more creative. It makes me more effective. It makes me more productive. It makes me so many things that I absolutely love. I'm like, but it's just been really hard for certain things the last 6 months. And I'm like, so I don't want to go on medication because I don't want to change me and I don't want to change how my brain works. But I'm like, I know that you can fix this. And I'm like, so you need to fix it. And that's legitimately like how I sometimes will talk to God. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I've been trying really hard. And right? Because we've gone through the same somatic training. Like, I know the things to do to rewire subconscious, to break ineffective patterns, all of that. I was doing all the things. And I'm like, I've tried everything. I'm like, I've tried just about everything. The last thing I haven't tried is medication. And I don't want to do that. I really don't want to do that. And so I'm like, take this away from me. Like, help me. And again, I had already been like in a really consistent habit of being back at church, reading my Bible, and like going to Bible study at my church, like doing the like women's Bible study on the weekends, like all of that. And so I like felt very, like, not only felt very connected to God, but also was like doing the things to like, quote unquote, be a good Christian. Like, I'm doing the action, I'm taking the actions too, and being consistent in my action. But I was like, I need your help with this because I can't. Like, I'm out. Like, I don't know what else to do, but I know so clearly, I know that you can take this and you can fix this. So like, I need you to. And in that conversation, I was like, and like, it's not a like, you do this and then I'll trust you more, but I was like, and I know that will make me like give even more of myself and my life to you. Like, I just know it. And it's not like an ultimatum with God. Like, that's not the energy, but I was like, I promise, like, if you help me with this, like, I know that there's a new level that I can step into. And literally, it's not like I woke up the next day with like a neurotypical brain, because that's not what happened. But literally, it was such a big difference within the same like 48 hours, like within 48 hours, like very different, where I'm like, oh, the like chatter, and a lot of the chatter had already gone away. It was just the like sitting and focusing and like following through, like, oh, it was exhausting, like the amount of effort it was taking me. But it was enough of a change for me to be like, oh, I was very heard and I'm very much being answered. Like, again, there are moments when it pops up, but after that conversation, I didn't have trouble focusing anymore. Wow. I didn't have trouble sitting down and being on my computer to do the boring stuff and to get the things done. Sure, I still leave my mail unopened for a little too long. I don't always check my email every single day, right? Like, there's still little things that are lingering, but like, it was such a dramatic difference that I was like, oh, I just had to ask you to help me with it. And so it's that sort of thing that I mentioned before, the hyper independence, that I was like, oh my gosh, like, why have I been trying to fix that all on my own this whole time? Like, when all I had to do was be like, I can't do it, or I don't want to do it, or I need your help.
Right.
Right. And so like, oh, it always gets me so emotional. And I'm also, we've just stepped into luteal. So the tears are closer to the surface, everybody. and so one of the things too with that is like the way I imagine God. One, I think God is, I know, like, God is such a good dad. God's such a good dad, and he wants to take the best care of us. And I also think that God is like such a girl dad too, right? Such a girl dad. And even like there's so many instances in the Bible when like men are asking for God's help and he's like, climb to the tallest mountain and there I'm going to talk to you, right? Like that kind of stuff. But for so many of the women, when they're needing God, he comes to them. Huh. Right. And so, oh,
interesting.
Yeah. And so it's like so sweet. It's so sweet. And so like, again, too, enforcing that, like, because God in the Bible is a he, right? And so it's, again, that kind of like, oh, the masculine energy is supposed to come to us thing too, right? Yeah. And so for that, like, I imagine God just like always being there. And one of the beautiful things about how God works and the fact that God gives us free will is, as we're like struggling and doing so many of these things ourselves, right? Sure, he's there being like, oh, so close. Oh, like all of that is how a lot of the time I imagine it. But if we're so committed to doing it ourselves, he's going to let us do it ourselves. Yeah. Even if sometimes that's going to put us in a bad position or cause us pain, right? But it's when we're like, hey, will you be with me in this? Or will you like help me with this? All we have to do is literally ask. And yeah, not every, like the prayers aren't going to get answered immediately every single time. But when we ask and we turn to God more, like he wants to help us. And like, so it's just like us needing to be like, hey, I'm available for your support and your guidance and your help. And like, so for me personally, when I had gone through that, like, cause after the fact, I was like, why did it take me so long to like ask God to help me with that? And I was like, oh, cause like I had all the tools, which I do. And I did. Right. And I wanted to solve that problem for myself. But I'm like, oh, but I also like had one of the best tools that I could have added to the toolbox too, which was like talking to God about it and prayer, not only the things that I knew from like a somatic training, like science perspective, because it's not at all to like undermine those things, because those are amazing and they're so cool and so effective. But it's like, oh, why wasn't I also asking God for help? You know, because like in my brain, he's like, it's about time, girl. I've been waiting here, just like, you know,
he's really saying that about me.
Yeah, I've been waiting here, ready for you to ask me for help. What took you so long? You had to like, just really, it had to get really hard, huh?
Yeah.
Right. Which is too, again, the like, how many times do we want to touch the fire of sort of thing before we do things a little bit differently. And too, that's not to like beat yourself up if you had to learn a lesson the hard way or take time or anything like that. But like, for me, that was one of the, like, yeah, my journey back to focusing on God was a really like gentle, like subtle internal invitation. And then I started noticing, oh, a lot more people are posting about this. Oh, she who was like literally like hosting medicine journey retreats is now going to church and not doing that stuff anymore. Interesting, you know? Yeah. And so started seeing that, which was really, really cool. Cause I think there's been a big shift, not just in the like spiritual and like coaching entrepreneurship type community, but also just like overall, like in the United States and the world, all of that. And so that's been cool to see. And yeah, because it was for me just a very internal thing, and got to a point even before that, like kind of ADHD come to Jesus moment where and not even just with dating or anything, but I was like, you know what? Like, I haven't gone through a season where I've been in a long time, like maybe college, but where I've been really like connected to God and felt that really personal relationship. So I was like, let's jump into that and see what happens. Let's see what happens. And I noticed, like, again, more of those things that had been in progress, like that maybe were kind of momentum was stalled, they started happening and moving forward faster. I was like, interesting. Interesting. This is working in my favor. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is working. Cool. This is working. And it feels better. And like the mental side of it, right? Too, when I'd be like imposter syndrome happening or whatever, the mental chatter, I would literally like, I felt like I was such a freak for a while, like as I was kind of shifting into this stuff, because as that mental chatter would happen, I would literally be like, Jesus, get it,
Right.
get this out of
Take it
here.
from me.
Yeah.
Right.
Cause I'm like, I know you don't talk to me that way. So get it out of here. Cause
Mm,
I don't want that crap. And if it's my own brain, that's like, and my own thoughts that are not being nice to me, if they're not coming from you, I know where they're coming from. And I don't
mm,
want that. And so that, like, I was like, I would like literally be praying throughout my day because I'm just like, and Jesus, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna blah, 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 and what about this? Like, I don't know. Like, oh my goodness, right? But even just the little things and being like, yeah, so checking in with like all the little steps, but then that was a big moment for me. And I had already like felt like I jumped in with both feet, but that's when I was like, oh, you really got my back.
mm.
Yeah. And even like I said, like even with my like the man I'm with, like again, I'm like, he's everything I've been talking to you about. Thank you.
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Thanks.
That is really
Yeah. So
neat.
it's
I mean, I'm like, it's such a cool story to hear. I mean, just all
thank
of
you. It's a
that.
lot.
It is
It's
a
a
lot.
lot.
It's a lot, but I mean, I can't wait to share, too with you. It's so interesting. It's an interesting
Yeah.
word,
It's so
right?
interesting.
Like this journey is just very interesting. Like, oh my God. I feel like
Yeah.
again, my relationship is obviously growing. And I find myself in those moments of like praying to God, whereas that, I mean, I have before, but it was different. It's like I did
Yeah.
the, it's like, I don't even know how to say it. It's like you just did because that's what you do.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but like, oh, okay, I'll pray to God. Oh,
Yeah.
or years ago, someone's not feeling well. Hey, can you like send some prayers? And it's like we're just
Yeah.
say for prayers for my family. And it's like, yeah, yeah, of course, I'll keep you in my thoughts and prayers. But I'm like, okay, and
Hmm.
I'll take a second, and I'll reflect. I'm like, God, keep them in your prayers. Like I'd say that, but I'm like, there was no like connection, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I was
Yep.
doing it to go through the motions of it, but
Hmm.
and I knew that that was a term of a higher thing, but there was
Yeah.
just like nothing. There was nothing there, though.
Yeah.
There
And I
was.
think too,
I mean, I'm sure to him there was.
yeah.
Like for me, it wasn't like I don't know. I just never really felt connected, and I never really did. I mean, I was raised Catholic also, and went through the confirmation and everything, and but even like the CCD classes,
Hmm.
I couldn't tell. I don't even remember reading the Bible in those.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
we did. I'm sure we did, but I don't remember. I was so just like detached, and I just had. It's like politics to me right now. Like I just am so disinterested. That is just an
Oh,
avenue. I
like
just don't.
careful. They'll
Yeah, I know.
scream at us for saying
Oh,
that.
I know. Seriously. No, it's not that I'm not interested. I'm very light around that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very heavy world. But no, I don't, it was just, I just felt really disconnected. And I just like don't
Yeah.
think I ever had a connection with God ever.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe when I was a baby, but I don't
Yeah.
remember, but going to church, I like don't, all I wanted was the little wafer, the body of Christ. I was hungry. I'm ready to go home and
Yeah.
eat.
You're like, oh, this weird snack, but
Yeah.
sure.
I told my parents, literally, we were leaving. Maybe it was Easter or Christmas, but we went to church recently, and my mom has started going back to church too.
Mm.
So it's been a really interesting journey for the Chase family. But we went to church and I was telling my mom that I was like, Mom, it's so interesting, just like your faith journey right now and mine too. I was like, honestly, all I wanted when we were younger is to get that body of Christ, that little wafer, to hold me over for the next 20 minutes until we could get home so I could eat a bologna sandwich.
Yeah.
I just started cracking up. She was like, "Oh my God,
No, I remember sometimes too, because at my church when we would, because at Lutheran church they do that too. And I remember like it wasn't usually the weird little like thin paper wafer thing. They'd have like a piece of bread that actually was like kind of good, right? Like I'm like,
oh,
I'd be like,
wow."
oh, this is kind of good little snack, right? Like that was exciting.
No, mine was a little paper wafer, basically.
Yeah.
So tiny.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I,
But yeah, what I've like for me, the like connecting to and so one of the things too is like it was, and this was one of the exciting things for me about new age stuff is that I was like, yeah, but I can connect to all these other spirits and like energies.
yeah,
And those are real things. And like, I don't know, spoiler alert, this might get too intense, but spoiler alert, demons,
yeah.
like, and so I'd be like, okay, well, but like I can connect to all these other things. And so for me, like connecting to God, like was a matter of like, okay, I'm going to get into the Bible, right? Because like one of the ways God says to get to know him is like read my word, right? Like so reading the Bible and getting to know God that way. But then just like talking to him, which is a
Yeah.
form of prayer. And so sure, like I have a set prayer time in the morning when I first get up. Now, which I've started doing a few like over 6 months ago at this point. But that was one of the things as I was like, stepping more into this journey. I'm like, okay, I should probably, I'm like, yeah, I yap to you all day long. Like, so it's not like I'm not talking to you, but I'm like, but I see a lot of people saying like talking about the importance of having like that dedicated quiet time. So like maybe I should do that, and I literally ask God, like, okay, I'll do morning prayer, like daily prayer time. When do you want me to do it? And I literally heard 6 a.m. And I was like, my man, I'm like, I don't get up that early. I'm like, I think you've noticed. I wake up when I feel like it. And I'm like, cause I'm a princess. Like, and I was like, are you sure? Cause I wouldn't like that. 6 a.m. And I was like, okay, then fine, fine. And so like having that dedicated time was helpful for me to really like connect with God and feel God. And some days like it feels like going through the motions, right? But just like with like some days like doing stuff that you like creating content or whatever it is, some days it feels like going through the motions. Like if you're a writer or a painter or something or dancer, right? Like some days you're not feeling on fire and just like filled with the energy of the thing that you're doing. You're like, no, I have to practice because I have to practice because that's devotion to
Right.
my craft, right? And so the consistency with that prayer habit, like the dedicated time, consistency with being in the Bible, but then also just like talking to God, like that's kind of the first was one of the first steps for me for really like feeling God was like the yapping throughout the day.
Yeah.
And if like a negative thought or if I'm like, I can't focus right now, will you help me? Thanks. Will you take away the distraction and take away this or that or whatever it is? Like, thanks. That kind of stuff was a big part of like what helped me start like really
Yeah.
feeling God's presence more. And but then just like having a conversation because there's also like sure there are like ways to pray and like all that kind of stuff and to be more masterful in how you pray and like prayer is about talking to God. So like we also don't have to make it super complicated. It can be either you can like literally be talking to God as like he already knows everything we're thinking and everything we're doing. So like you don't have to spend all this energy to try and like say it in a certain way, right? Or like,
Right.
oh, this is how everyone says it at church when they're praying, like this, the church style prayer. I have to figure out how to talk that way. No, like talk like how you normally talk.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
hey God,
helpful.
like I want to talk to you about like I'm stressed about this and I feel sad and I'm frustrated and I'm da 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 da. Like you can also be angry at God
Mhm.
and frustrated with God. And so just like talking to God because it's about a relationship and it's about intimacy. And so being yourself, right, is like the
Right.
place
Right.
to start. like
Yeah.
like
No,
yeah.
that's powerful. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that's probably something that I have struggled with is like, how do I say it? Like in the way that, like the
Yeah.
right way, instead of like, Kelly, just just speak,
Yeah.
talk. And I mean,
Yeah. And it can,
I've been doing that. But how do you, my question is, because I feel like people have asked me, like just what comes to you, where, like things like that. Like, how did he tell you 6 a.m.? How did you hear that?
so I, I love that because, okay. So I am very energetically sensitive and very intuitive. And again, so like when I was dabbling in a lot of like new age, new thought stuff and a lot of like, other dimensions and consciousness and stuff like that, I could connect with a lot of different energies and even entities.
Yeah.
And again, which while they may seem friendly and nice and like they're doing good things for you, they're not
Mm,
ultimately. And so I've always been pretty attuned to that kind of stuff, and especially more so in recent years. And for me, like so I will have very strong, like I'll have like kind of auditory knowing, like the that kind of stuff. So either where I can almost hear, like it's not like someone says something, but it's like I'm hearing it in my like thought, if you will. Um, but then I can also have like a just a knowing, like a sense in my body of an answer to
mm,
something. I can also often like see things or stuff like that. Like just like, a sign. And I'm not really like, I don't really ask for signs anymore, but like when I was like, okay, what time should I do this? I didn't know how that would come through. I'm like, okay, what time? Right. But I knew because again, with being really connected to myself, and I believe like my intuition is a direct channel to God. And so knowing what that feels like for myself and knowing like, okay, when I get an answer coming through my intuition, like I believe that's God talking through me. So when I and because I know what that feels like, I'm going to know it's God.
mm.
And which is different than like, and I'll add another story to this in a minute. And so for me, when I was like, okay, when should I do this? And I like literally, and when I say motion like this, it's because I heard, not as if someone was talking. It was, I don't know how to explain it in a way that really makes sense, but it's like almost like it was and if I use the word psychic download, right, that's me using a lot of these new age terms, but that's the only way to like really, it was like the words in a thought got dropped into my brain over here. Like it was
Mhm.
like, I said, okay, what time should I do this? And it was like 6 a.m.
Hmm.
That's how it feels for me. It's not going to feel the same for everybody, but that's how it feels to me. And sometimes too, like when I ask certain things, like, yeah, you're not always going to get an answer or something clear in the moment, but I will sometimes know, like I will feel the pull toward what the like God centered direction is.
Mhm.
And so interestingly, like with asking for signs and stuff like that, I know I mentioned in the beginning, like, oh, this one time I dated a sociopath.
Yeah.
So that relationship, interestingly, was after I had done all that work, that reprogramming work, that like ancestral work and stuff like that on like releasing the narcissism
Mm.
attachment, not necessarily through God, through like all the other things that I had been doing, probably a little bit of God as well. But I had released that. And then interestingly, met this man. And the wild thing about it is in the beginning, and while now, of course, like looking back, I can point out certain things that I was like, oh, this, but even still, like so much of that relationship in the beginning felt healthy. It didn't have the like love bombing energy. It didn't have the swirly, chaotic chemistry that I was like used to be addicted to, which is a very like kind of narcissistic or trauma bond kind of energy, that like immediate, chaotic, but like so fun chemistry, right? Like it didn't have that. It felt almost kind of boring in a way, not completely boring, but like really steady, a little boring. And I was like, I think this is healthy, right? And that's one of the things too, ladies. When you've been used to toxic or unhealthy relationships and stuff like that, healthy might feel boring. It
Right.
often does because it
Mm.
doesn't have the uh, chemical push and pull that makes toxic relationships exciting. And it doesn't activate the nervous system in a way that kicks up all those like not good hormones that you think are chemistry and that you think are butterflies. And so this, I'm like, I had just done all this deep work on like releasing the spirit of narcissism and like healing all that kind of stuff. And this relationship, like steady, consistent. He was super consistent, a gentleman, like all this kind of stuff. Like again, like a lot of the qualifications on paper, very handsome, like all this, and I didn't have the like there wasn't the love bomby energy, there wasn't the like swirly chaotic like insane chemistry either, but like steady. And I'm like, oh, this feels healthy, right? And then um I remember at that time, and I was still like doing like new age, new thoughty stuff at this time, thoughty. And I remember asking for a sign and specifically being like, okay, if he's a yes, show me a peacock, like specific, right? I was being specific and not a yes, like, is he my husband? But I was like, is he like a yes to like talk to for another day or another week, right? Like, is this still a yes? And I think I'm talking to God in this. And I'm like, is he a yes? Literally, I think like that night, I randomly, because I never watched this show, I randomly watched like the Kardashians or something on Hulu. And again, never watched that show. And in the episode I chose to watch, they went to a peacock farm. And I was like, interesting. Right. And then like a day or two later, I did the same thing because now I'm like, let's flirt, universe, and I'm like, okay, if he's a yes, show me another peacock. And then I'm like driving, which again, that's not like a super like, I'm not like, show me a golden retriever that I could see like walking around my neighborhood daily.
Right.
And I'm driving and I see like out of all places, like out of the back of a garbage truck, or no, it was like a box truck, like a moving truck, but the door was open and sticking out of like the side of it was a peacock feather. I'm like,
No.
so weird. So weird. And I did that a few more times and it happened a few more times. And so during this too, I'm thinking, God is giving me the thumbs up in this relationship. And great, I am doing a great job. Right. And so after when things like happened, when things like fell to crap, which is like, I have to record an episode on this on my show. In retrospect, right? Because things started to get weird. We dated for like 3 months, 3.5 months or something. And in the last few weeks, things started to get weird. And I was like, something's going on. Like something is going on. And I'm missing, like, I don't, something's off. Something's off. And then it all like came to a head in a really dramatic way. And I found out a lot of insane stuff. Basically, this person was a very good pathological liar. And so after this, but that's a story for another time. You guys are going to have to subscribe to my channel and
That's right.
my podcast, and I'll tell the story later. But after the fact, I was like, why did God make me go through that? God, why did I asked for all these signs and I asked you to do this to like, I asked for guidance and confirmation and you gave me confirmation every single time I asked. Like, that's messed up. Like, why'd you do that to me? Like,
Right.
and back then I was like, well, I guess I needed to learn the lesson. God wanted me to learn the lesson, and that's the way I had to learn it, this hard way. That's not, God doesn't want to treat us that way. God doesn't want to treat us that way. So again, because I was dabbling in energy, spirits, and all of that kind of stuff, which and I'm gonna get really like black and white with this. If it's not God, if it's not from God, it's from Satan. That's it. That's it. It's not like, oh, it's from a good spirit that's working on God's side. Sure, yes, there are angels and stuff like that, but if it's not coming from God, it's coming from the enemy. And the thing about that is, which is why like going back to like the new age stuff, the new thought stuff and all of that, and like even like the spirit guide stuff, and why like it's like, okay, but why does then that stuff work?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? Why does it work? One, it works because it's, if it didn't work, you wouldn't stay doing it. Right? Like just like being in a toxic relationship, they're going to breadcrumb you. They're going to give you little moments of good stuff to keep you around, because if it's all awful, you're out of there.
Right.
But the little good moments keep you there so that they can continue to take your energy and stuff like that. Just like in this kind of situation, right? Like just like dark forces as well. If it always resulted in something crappy happening, you're not going to keep doing that thing. I hope not, right? But like, because there's got to be some sort of reward, some sort of benefit to keep you in it, you know, because because the way that like God and the devil work is like, God needs your full devotion, like full devotion, surrender to God. The devil doesn't. He just needs you distracted enough to not be fully with God. And so like, he doesn't need to like you to fully commit to him. No, he just needs to distract you enough with random things or whatever to not be fully connected to God and not be fully surrendered to God. And so a lot of the time, like it's easy to see when things are outright wrong, bad, evil, whatever. And then it's easy to avoid those things. What the trick is, and why discernment is so important, why being connected to God is so important, is that like if we're getting biblical and stuff like that, like Satan masquerades as a angel of light, right? That's what Lucifer means. So like he's presenting himself as a good thing, as a good option. Like even just like, and we're going in all kinds of directions today, but even like so much of the entertainment industry is really dark. Really dark. Knowing people who are in it, have been in it, all that kind of stuff is really dark. But it's so appealing, and you can be famous and you can make so much money. Don't you want that? Don't you want that? Why don't you want that? Right? And so it's not like, oh, I'm going to present this completely evil, bad thing to try and get your attention. No, you should be going like this. I'm going to show you something. Like if you should be going this line, I'm going to show you something right there. It's so close. It's so close to exactly what you want, but it's not. But you're going to think it is. And that's how I keep you distracted. And that's how I keep you distracted for a long time. And not just distracted, but that's how I also get access to your energy.
Right.
And so that for me, like the big realization when I was like, God, why'd you do that to me? Why'd you make me get like involved with a really, who I believe and I don't say this lightly, like an evil person. And I'm like, oh, because it wasn't God doing that. It's because I had given access to other energy because I wasn't fully with God. I thought I was, but I wasn't, because I was like, spirit guide, this thing, this energy, blah, 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 like goddess this, right? Like I'm connecting with all this bullshit that like I'm giving them access to me. Right. And so sure, they're gonna be like, oh, you're allowing me to have some control over your life. Sure. You want a sign for that? So I can keep you with this dark energy that's attached to him, so that the dark energy can feed off of your energy. Great. I'm going to give you that sign then. And so that for me was like, oh, that wasn't God doing that. God doesn't want us to learn. Like, sure, sometimes that's the way things happen, but like, God doesn't want us to go through like immense trauma. Sometimes, sure, because it grows our faith, but like that sort of thing, like, I'm like, oh, that wasn't God giving me signs to stay in a relationship, because I know that if I was genuinely asking God for guidance and for signs, that he would have given me signs to keep me safe and protected, not signs to go deeper with somebody who is a very dangerous person.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm like, just threw so much at you. I'm like, weren't we talking about dating? I'm like, if it's not God, it's the devil. You guys.
Also relatable. I mean, if it's a nice guy, or if it's
we did. There we go. Full circle. The sociopath I dated. demon. I'm joking, but there's one there's one living in him.
Hilarious.
Uh,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Wow. I know I can like talk to you forever about this.
Well, we
Yeah,
have time tomorrow too.
yes,
Unless we can keep going, but yeah, I know it's so fun, all this stuff.
it is fun. No, it's getting late here in Atlanta, so I
I know,
probably
yeah,
got
I
to
know.
wrap it up, but I would love to. But yeah, tomorrow we're gonna chat it up.
We're gonna
Keep it
keep
going.
going. Yeah.
Keep
Yeah,
going. So
absolutely. This is so fun.
it's just fascinating. Like you were saying about, okay, why, you were so curious into all these other modalities, right? And
Yeah.
like teachings and whatnot. And then like, why wouldn't you be studying something that had been a part of your life for so long?
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Like,
yeah, maybe I'm not like all on, I don't know where I'm at with everything, but I'm curious and I'm interested in,
yeah.
it's like,
And that's okay to not know
yeah,
where you at, or be like, I'm not calling myself a Christian right now. That's okay too. Like you're opening the door, you're curious, and that's
yeah,
where you are. Cool. You
yeah.
know? Yeah.
Well, but
And
I am talking to God more. So I do like
yeah. Yeah.
myself. It does
But
feel
yeah, it was something for me where I was like, am I that arrogant to think that like I've like don't like one, I don't know my Bible well enough and clearly God well enough to not know that these things are, or I don't know God well enough and my Bible well enough to know that these things are incompatible, right? Like I'm like, if I knew my Bible better and my God better, I would know that this stuff that I'm dabbling in is not, doesn't jive with what I say I believe, right? Like, okay, you're being a little arrogant, right? For me, right? Like I was being a little arrogant there, like, oh, and I wasn't consciously thinking like, oh, I've done all the research, because absolutely not, right? Like, absolutely not. But like my like superficial, like, however deep my understanding and knowledge was, I was like, well, that's good enough. I need to expand my consciousness into all these other things and like all these other practices and modalities. But then also wasn't looking really closely at where all of those things came from, right? Because I was also like, I was doing a lot of beliefs and things that are part of the occult
Yeah.
that is satanic, But again, the thing on its own doesn't look bad, doesn't seem
Right.
bad at all,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I'm
Right.
like, oh wait, but that thing that I'm doing that doesn't on its own doesn't look bad at all, doesn't look bad at all, and it's helped me a lot. If I look deeper into where this actually came from, I'm like, what? That's not good, Like, and so even those sorts of things, I'm like, why wasn't I getting more curious to understand, right? What was deeper with all of this stuff? And the other point with it too, and I'm really proud of myself because I told you like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago or so, I started like the Bible from the beginning. I like last month finished it. I finished it all the
Wow.
way from beginning to the end. It was
Yeah.
so cool. And I'm like gonna start it over. And I listened to it. So like I'd listen to it while I'm driving or like in the morning sometimes, like, whatever. Um, but that was another thing too, where I'm like, and got this in listening to it. I'm like, there is so much to dig into in the
Mhm.
Bible. Like such cool stories. There's plenty of boring stories too, and plenty of books where I'm like, this is a whole book about how to build the temple. I'm like, I know
Right.
it's important, so I'm not dissing it. I'm like, this is boring as heck. I'm like, this is
Right.
like, oh, measurements. I'm reading a construction manual right now, right? Like there's stuff that's boring. There's stuff that's boring. It's okay. But there's also so much that's so cool. There's also so much in the Bible that's supernatural. So all the extra dimensional things that I was like so into and so curious about, I'm like, there's plenty of that in the Bible. But then
Mhm.
also, which was fascinating to me, is reading a lot of these things. I'm like, oh, this belief or this saying or this idea that is in like the spiritual community a lot, they ripped that from the Bible,
Mm.
but they're ripping it from the Bible and twisting it for their purposes, right? But I'm like, oh, this is the original source. They're just plagiarizing this. Like, get at it, like that was fascinating too, to see and being like, oh, my man, you started that. Great. Then
Okay.
why am I going to all these other things when this is the place where it's all is, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
true. It was funny, just one thing, the when you mentioned the occult, so it said the guy that I was talking about earlier, the pastor, he was like, you know, this is all the occult. And he had written a book. And so he showed me like things in the book and it's pointed out like all the things that are a part of the occult. Right. And he was like even yoga, Kel. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but that is stretching. Okay. That like
Yoga,
my body.
like I get the argument with yoga because like the positions are like in honor
Right.
of deities, right?
Right.
And so like by putting your body in that position, you're like praying to the deity. But like I'm still not convicted on
Yeah.
yoga yet. Like I'm like, I get it, but like, can't I also see it as a stretch?
That's what
Like yes and
I
no.
was
I
like,
don't
I don't think I'll ever get on board with that. I was like, that has like helped my like hurt like slightly degenerative disc. Like I have like ailments. So medically,
yeah.
specifically, it is helping my body feel better. So that will
Yeah.
never, I mean, there are weeks I don't do yoga, but like at the end of the day, like in my room, even sometimes I'm just doing a few cat cows and some like little
Yeah. So
things,
I
like
think I
just
think
feels
there's a
good.
way it can be modified or done that like isn't like yeah, sacrilegious or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. The occult, oh my gosh. And I know, okay, we're gonna wrap up soon. But as we said, we're having girl talk. But I remember one of my other kind of turning points, and this was when I was like committed to God, like really focused and feeling really clear. And also my radar for like deceptive stuff and like misaligned things was also starting to sharpen a lot. And I remember somebody who we connected through Instagram. It's someone who's like big in kind of the consciousness, new age, new thought, like manifestation, divine feminine, divine masculine kind of space, has a big platform on social media. And like has like on occasion like shouted out my programs before, like given me advice, like we've hopped on a call before and they've like been like, oh, try this like practice or try this like in a like mostly supportive like coaching kind of way. I'm sure there was probably some sort of like ulterior motives. So this is a man I'm talking about, but like generally supportive or like, oh, try this practice or this visualization, like that sort of thing, and things that were often helpful. And I remember it wasn't even that long getting a text to be like, or something every once in a while, like, oh, I love that post you did. Great job. Like, love it or whatever. But texted me something that was like, oh, have you heard? I think it was like pictures out of a book or something that he thought I would like. And like that were related to something I posted or my work or whatever. Texted me pictures like out of a book and then said what it was, or like, have you heard of da 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 da? And mentioned um Aleister Crowley, who's like a like known like Satanist, occultist.
Okay. Okay.
And I was like, no, I've never heard of this. I'm like, isn't he like like what, or wasn't he like a like the big like not like starter of it, but like a major like Satanist sort of thing, like occultist, like, because I'm like, I don't think I should be taking that knowledge from that guy, right? Like, why are you sending me this? This seems weird. And the response was, yeah, but like some of his stuff is actually like good. Like good. You don't have to like, apply it to that or like buy into that. So it was like and I was like, oh, this is bad. Like, this is bad. This is bad. Like, and again, it's so easy with that kind of stuff to be like, oh, but this little piece of the practice, like that's helpful. Do
Right.
it. Right. Well, I don't believe in like
Mm.
Satanism and stuff like that. I'm not going to read his whole book and buy into his philosophy. Sure, I can just do that one practice. It doesn't seem harmful. I mean, look at it. It seems pretty like neutral and it seems like it'll help me. It was like maybe on money mindset or something like that. I don't even know. But that's also too where I was like, oh, this is not good. And also like this connection is not someone I should be entertaining anymore. Because
Right.
like now it's like not just a like, oh, try this visualization practice, try this. I'm literally getting sent pages out of a like top occultist, top satanic leaders books now.
Yeah.
I was like,
Ex-
oh, I was like, thanks for sharing. And I'm not
Yeah.
responding anymore to anything you send me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, right. And so it's like how easy again with going to the like God needs our full surrender and like giving our whole life and heart to God. The devil doesn't. He just needs to distract us enough to not give our full energy. And so it's not like so even with that situation, I don't need to be like reading Aleister Crowley books and like believing in the whole thing. But if I'm adding
Just
some
that
of his
one sentence.
practices,
Yeah.
if I'm adding some of his practices or some of his affirmations, or I'm doing his visualizations that he recommends, that keeps my focus not on God.
Right. Right.
Right. And because
Yep.
again, you can be like, oh, well, you can just like separate it from the thing. I'm like, not when the intention, the underlying intention of all of that body of work and that person's teachings are to drive you toward more occult beliefs. You can't really separate it out,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So like that was another one of those moments when I was like,
Mm.
you're justifying sending
Right.
me something from,
Right. Yeah.
I was like, I know that name is a no to be learning from. Like, yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
Well, at least you had the good discernment to be like, yeah, no, I'm
yeah.
not
But
doing
even
that.
like, but even like, I don't know, 2 years ago, I may not have, right? I
Right.
might have been
Well,
like,
for
oh, I'll try
sure.
it out.
I mean, same,
Yeah,
same. It's interesting because like you were talking about like spirit guides and things like that. Like, all right, obviously I know a lot of people that were into that, entertaining it, had them,
yeah,
whatever, and would talk to them all the time. Um, but I never had that. Maybe it's because again, like when I asked you like how you heard the number six kind of thing, it's like I don't hear these people talking to me like I'm thinking of like one person in particular that would always talk about their spirit guides and like and the first time that they ever saw them. And
mhm.
granted, I think the person was having a like panic attack, mental breakdown in New York City, and therefore these three people revealed themselves, or these three spirits revealed themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll have to tell you more about that. But like, regardless, this person claims that those three people are her spirit guides. Like they weren't real.
yeah,
We saw them
yeah,
walking down the streets in Manhattan, and they were her spirit guides, and they have led her for 20 years, kind of thing. And it's just so fascinating. But I've never like, I don't know, there's certain things like, yeah, like I've pulled oracle cards here and there, but I've never been like, let's do it every single day. Like,
yeah,
or crystal, like even crystals. I have crystals. I've had crystal. I mean, even my parents have crystals because my dad grew up in Arizona. Like there's rocks, it's Sedona, like the board, like
yeah.
all the
Oh,
things.
and there's nothing wrong with like having cool
They're just pretty
crystals
rocks
in your
to me.
house. Yeah, there's
I don't
nothing
sit
wrong
there
with
and I'm
like,
not
oh,
like, I don't
this is
like
really
moon phase them
beautiful.
or anything either. Like I don't do moon
Yeah,
rituals with my crystals. They're just literally sitting there and they're pretty, and that's about
yeah, and that's totally fine, right? Like it's the thing of like, okay, I'm gonna charge them out in the sun, and then I
it. Yeah,
believe that they're giving me extra powers
yeah,
or energies is like
yeah,
when we start to get a little questionable about it.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
It's,
so
it's interesting that I've never like really felt this like super strong pull with certain things in that realm,
yeah,
new age realm, I guess. I mean, granted, obviously I've studied a lot of it and
yeah,
have the things, but I practice, I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
Here and there. I'd use the tools when I felt they were appropriate to use them. Let's put it that
right,
way. Like when I felt
right,
like
yeah.
so interesting. I don't know. It's so fascinating.
It's all so it's so fascinating. But yeah, but that's one of the things too is like I like even having recently like completed listening to the Bible from start to finish, like just like consecutively, like I'm like, oh, there's like not that I will never read anything else, obviously not. Like but I'm like,
So,
there's no reason for me, right, to get bored of getting my spirituality from here. right?
Right.
Like, and like from like in a biblical foundation, like literally, like you can get so much out of like two sentences of the
Mm,
Bible in certain places that it's like so cool.
yeah.
Like there's so much to dig into.
Oh yeah.
And if you, I don't know if you have, but if you haven't, like I started watching, me and my man started watching The Chosen
Yeah.
this year. I love it so much. It's so
I
good.
haven't, I started because a friend of mine recommended that I watch it, and I think I watched about like 10 minutes of it, and I was very checked out. So I wasn't focused,
Yeah. The
or it
beginning,
wasn't catching my interest enough.
yeah. I remember the first couple episodes were a little slower. Um we're in season 4 now, I think, and
Okay.
it's definitely, yeah, I would
Getting
say
better.
it's for sure worth it. But yeah, when I started it by myself,
Yeah.
initially, I was like, this is kind of boring. Like I'm kind of,
Yeah. I'll have
but
to
it
make,
is really
I'll have to
cool to
make
like see, it's really cool to like see the stories like put in that visual way.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'll check it out. Well, tell everyone where they can check you out.
Oh my goodness, you guys.
I'll get
You
behind
can,
you. Thank you so much for
yeah.
being here today, too.
Absolutely. This was awesome. This was awesome. You guys can find me everywhere. I'm really active on Instagram and on TikTok at Lauren Salaun. So it's just my first name, last name. That's Salaun for my last name. And then one of the things, if you guys are wanting support on feminine energy embodiment and like how you can activate a man's masculine energy, I have a really, really awesome texting guide. It's called Text Like a Queen. And it is on my website, laurensalon.com/text dash like dash a dash queen. And you can also, if you go on my Instagram or TikTok, it's all linked there too. But that's like, it's such a good juicy guide with like almost 100 different text messages that you can send. And it's not just for texting, right? You can say these things too in a conversation or in person to like, stay in your feminine and activate a man's masculine. And it works if you're just dating or even if you're like in a relationship or married as
I
well.
love it.
Yeah.
I love that. Ooh, I should probably
Thanks.
download that.
Yeah. It's really good.
It just as a refresher for my brain. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm in a really good place right now. I'm like honoring boundaries, and we're not touching stoves anymore. So
Good. Good. Right.
yeah,
Like when you feel it hot once and then
yeah,
you leave it there.
yeah.
Or you just feel it getting warm. You're like, I see that warm stove.
Yep,
Bye.
yep, yep, yep. We're leaving it.
Yeah.
God's work.
Yeah.
God's plan.
Yes.
Oh my God. But thank you so much. I love
You're
you.
welcome. This was great. Love you too. And I'm excited to talk more tomorrow.
I
How
know,
about
me
you?
too.